All right, so let's talk some more about the goddess complex. And let me premise this by saying, women, I love you. I love women. I have all their albums, and I hope to find the one day that is also ruled by the Holy Spirit. And together, we're going to make a better version of ourselves that way, through each other. So the purpose of this video is to provide women with the secrets to preparing you for being a forever wife that today's church can't risk telling you plainly, okay? So God made you for the man so that he would not be lonely. But there is something about your very nature that causes you to seek dominance over men. In marriage, even the best Christian women desire to be the co-pilot with a first right of refusal on everything. This is essentially the goddess complex, and you have to identify it within yourself, and you have to fight it every day. It's a psychological trait, it's a spiritual flaw, and it's a cultural artifact, okay? And this is not to excuse men. Men have their own things that they have to deal with. But let's move on. Compounding this problem is that when women are little girls, they are taught that they are a fairy princess. And we say that they are sugar and spice and everything nice. So basically we're saying they're not filled with anything bad whatsoever. They have nothing to work upon, work around in their psyche or their mannerisms or anything. That's what we're saying. So this is just not true. Of course, this is going to set your psyche up for having a goddess complex when you're told sugar and spice and everything nice and you're a fairy princess. And, men have no such equivalent when we're boys. When we're boys, we're taught, because we're all over the place, we're like monkeys, we're rambunctious, we're wrestling. We're always taught, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. Not so much for little girls in that capacity. So the serpent approached the woman. The serpent approached Eve and says he was shrewd and crafty. And he said, as we read in the Bible, it says, "You shall be like God." Well, what's the gender of that? The feminine gender of that? It's goddess. He was coming to her saying, "You will be a goddess." Okay? Let that sink in for a moment. You will be a goddess. Okay? And that's going on all through history ever since, that same message being whispered in her ear for the most part today. So this brought the fall of mankind, but it also ruined a cushy job of harvesting in the garden. All that was gone, and it just became agonizing sweat to work for your food every day. So it also says that your husband shall rule over you. Now again, I just want to say that a godly husband is first going to God. Okay, he understands the ways of God, his righteousness, and his love and compassion, and he needs to be just showering his wife with the same way that God treats the man. Okay, so God rules over the man, and the man rules over the wife. That's how it's meant to be. Okay, so God promises Abraham children, but Sarah convinces him to bypass God's plan. There's the whisper in the ear again. All right? So women, you've always got to be identifying this in yourself, that weakness that's within you, that flaw that's in you, and holding it up to God, and just always trying to be identifying it. Okay? And it's like Paul says, take every thought captive. Okay? Before you go to your husband and complain about something or anything, just take that thought captive first, think about it, and then submit it to your husband. Okay? So women have brought down empires by seducing and corrupting the righteous ways of men. And men, like I said, men have their faults of their own, but women have this power over men they need to be very, very careful with. And they need to align themselves with what God teaches us. So I have this airplane analogy about how God's chain of command works. God is the tower that guides the jet so it doesn't crash into another aircraft or into a mountain, and so it can land and be told where it can land safely. Okay? So we can think of God this way, talking to the pilot in the plane. right? Adjust your altitude, okay? Make a right turn, you're going the wrong way. Pilots sometimes get disoriented, so they're talking to the tower. So the tower in this scenario would be God. So where does that leave the pilot? Well, the pilot, on the other hand, is directly responsible for protecting the passengers with a safe flight and providing transportation to the destination. Okay? In this analogy, this would be the father of the household. This would be the husband to the wife. Okay, well, then who are the children? Who is the wife then? Well, the stewardess is responsible for everyone, including the captain, in protecting those people on board and in the transportation. All right? So the captain is getting there safely and avoiding collisions and catastrophes and all these kind of things, while the stewardess supports the pilot, brings him a cup of coffee, maybe if he gets drowsy, feeds him, just make sure that all the passengers in the cabin, which I would equate to children, the rest of the family, is that they're all taken care of, and so that the pilot, the husband, can't be distracted with these things. So Ephesians 5:22 through 24 says, "Wives, submit to your own husbands as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything." So, what does submissive means? It literally means to bring things to your husband for him to consider, to make a final decision on. It doesn't mean that you're a co-pilot, that you're making decisions, big decisions that will redirect your household. So you bring these things to your husband, submit them to him. Okay, husband, listen, I had this idea about this. Can we consider this? So he will then, on the big issues, will submit those things to God for a decision. Okay? And that's where you come in after you've submitted to him. You're also praying for your husband, praying to God that he makes a correct decision that guides your household. That's how it's supposed to work. So both the husband and the wife have to be on the same page. The woman is not the co-pilot. So when it says in Genesis 3:16, "Your husband shall rule over you," at this time I see men out with their wives and kids, and they almost always look demoted and dejected, like they're the least important member of the family, just kind of tagging along. When according to God, they should be the lords of their own household. Okay? This is how godly wives of the Bible address their husbands, as my Lord. Yeah, it might sound subservient to you, in a way it is, but that's the respect. Just as man has to be respectful to coming to God, you've got to be respectful coming to your husband as well. So this was quite a practice for thousands of years. A wife would come to her husband and say, "My Lord, can we consider this?" Okay? So women were created as the supporter to men by God. Okay, the supporter, meaning to hold him up when the gale wind forces are coming against him in his life. Because remember, he is the provider and the protector. Women, you don't need to be the provider in your house if you have a husband. And I know there are exceptions to this, men that have been injured or what have you. But man is to be the provider and the protector, okay? But today, men don't want to get married anymore. If that woman and a man are not 100% in line with God's order of authority, then the man usually loses his house and becomes a slave to financially supporting the ex-wife's life of luxury indefinitely, which is the fruits of the goddess complex, not the fruits of God. Okay? So, why I'm saying this is, it's getting ever harder for you women, for you single women, to find a husband, okay? That's because there's very little incentive today for a man to get married, frankly, and every reason in the world not to get married. Okay, but we that are want to obey God's plan for us, our purpose to have children, to be fruitful and multiply, to raise our children in God's ways, we still want to honor that. But women, I can tell you, even Christian women, once you go out and get an attorney, that attorney who's out in this for their own interest, to keep filling their pockets again and again, to keep the war going, telling you, well, you're under state law, you deserve this and that and this, and then you've got all these girlfriends that some of them might not be godly women that are also telling you, girl, you need to take everything you can and look out for you. Don't listen. Don't. Remember, the serpent is always there, ready to divide you. And as Christ said, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. That means to divide, okay? Don't let an attorney divide you. Don't let your girlfriends divide you. Don't let whispers in your ear divide you, that you don't need a husband anymore, that you can do it on your own. You can have the life of luxury at his expense. And, okay, he can see the kids once in a while. Don't do that. Don't go down that road. So, Christian women, I'm hearing this from so many of you now that are out there and have your own social media shows, and you're just telling people about godly marriages and everything. You are exercising control over your husband in the bedroom. For the men that love a woman, sex, this is the most intimate form of communication you can have with your lover, with your husband, okay? When they are in love with you, this is their way of bearing their soul and completely exposing themselves. And it's a relief valve to all of life's pressures that prevents them from exploding on you. So if you find yourself in a situation with your husband and you get in fights and he's exploding on you, well, I can tell you right now, a big part of that is because you are not assisting him. You are not supporting him in helping him with his relief valve. There's no other way to say it, really. Okay? And I'm hearing so many Christian women just excusing themselves, talking about, well, I was tired that night, or I had a headache, or blah, blah, blah. But you would do this for your children, okay? Your little son or your daughter, they say, oh, I need you, mommy. I need you to come do this. I need you for that. You're going to jump out of bed no matter what kind of headache you have, how sleepy you are, how tired you are from the day of looking after your children all day long. Okay? You're going to go do it. Because remember, your husband needs this. And I'm so sorry that the church can't talk about this. I really am. Okay? But somebody's got to be truthful with you. So, to quote Pat Benatar, she has a song that says, "Stop using sex as a weapon." And as Paul said, take every thought captive. You'd be tempted to get back at your husband by just withholding sex from him. Come on, admit it. You have. Okay? So women, in keeping with this whole theme of the show, which is this episode, to prepare you to be a forever wife for a husband, and this is kind of a new term I came up with, the forever wife, because there's so many divorces happening now because of all the reasons I just mentioned. I feel sorry for you women that are younger women, because I don't think you don't have moms today that teach you the importance that were held so highly by our culture just not too long ago. I mean, in the 1940s through the 1960s, we had charm schools. This is when charm schools peaked. Parents would send their teenagers who might have needed refinement. Maybe they were awkward or rebellious or just unpolished. These charm schools taught them social skills, which would be, used how to talk to people outside as you manage your household for your husband, for the household, for your household together. You would be given those social skills to talk to people outside politely and with etiquette and to negotiate. Okay? Negotiate on behalf of your household. You need to do that sometimes. Okay? And have social skills with your husband. Okay? You need to read the signs, women, of your husbands. Okay? Men don't like to open up and talk like you do. They just don't. But I guarantee you, if you've relaxed him in bed, he's going to be more open to talking to you about his day. I guarantee it, because you've just opened the door of intimacy, and he feels safe with you then that he can unload on you. And don't you ever use it on him, because you will close him up and you will never open that door again. You will maybe continue to have sex, but if you ever betray him with something he has shared with you, bearing his soul, he's done. He's not coming back to share with you ever again. And at that point, your marriage is doomed to fail. It is doomed to be an empty, talkless, loveless marriage. So that's it. Consider heavily about the goddess complex. It's been around forever. That's why, like in Corinth, for instance, a lot of you Christians like to talk about the temple, or the body is the temple, and these things, and don't lust and sexual immorality. That's Christians. You're always going on about that, but you have no cultural context about it whatsoever. What was happening is there was this big, gigantic, beautiful, ornate temple in the middle of Corinth, where there were lots of people that were attending that. That was their main religion, okay? The temple of Aphrodite, the goddess of fertility, okay? They were attending and using their bodies as a sexual sacrifice, using their bodies to sacrifice for fertility to Aphrodite. That's what was going on there, okay? So even before Aphrodite, dating way back throughout the Old Testament, goddesses, so it just keeps going on and on and on, okay? Dominance over men, using your sexuality for fertility, but at the same time trying to control men, specifically in this case. I'm talking about your husband. So leave your comments below. Join up, because I love talking about this subject. And go back and look at some of my previous videos. I'm getting a lot of hateful comments about talking openly like this. But like I said, somebody's got to tell you this, because the pastor, the preachers, the ministers, the priests, all the leadership, they can't afford to tell you, because it's going to eat into their offering basket and bring down the little businesses that they've created for themselves, instead of preaching God plainly to you and preaching you and teaching you what God's word really says. They're more interested in keeping the doctrines of demons just circulating and circulating and circulating, and the seminaries they're creating it and they're putting it out. So I encourage you, just run at the Bible and don't just rely on the English. I can tell you for a fact, I've been studying it deeply for years now. There are transliterations. There are things that are invented, agendas behind some of the things that are said in the Bible. God's original word is going to be uncorrupt. That's the way he gave it to us, okay? But you need to seek out these things and seek the truth, okay? Seek the truth. So go to the Bible, and really, 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 you got to study the Old Testament as well. You can't just jump into the last 23.7% of the Bible, the last part of the Bible, and expect to interpret it, because you're not a Jew. You're not living 2,000 years ago. You're not familiar with the Old Testament, like specifically the Levitical laws, the laws of Deuteronomy, these are where Moses gave the laws that came from God to tell us and define for us what is sin, okay? And I guarantee you, if you get into Leviticus 18, Leviticus 20, Deuteronomy 22, you're going to be really surprised at some of the things that are missing there against sexuality, okay? Well, that's it. Please subscribe, hit like, comment, okay? Bring the comments, okay? And remember, be gracious in your comments, because if you're not, I'm just going to delete you. If you're leveling false accusations and getting off in tirades that have nothing to do with the subject, you're going to get deleted. So be polite, be gracious, be good Christians. Thanks for watching.